Welcome. Jamie Hernandez here. Welcome to Soul Healing for Empathic Entrepreneurs Community Group. And today's training is called 3 Reasons Why Empaths or Empathic Entrepreneurs, to be more precise, get overwhelmed. Reason number 1, and I talk about this all the time, but I'm going to say it again and again and again. We feel everything. And if you are anything like me or my clients, we are healers, we are coaches, we are sensitives, we are intuitive. And our entire nervous system feels the frequency. So if you're a healer and you're a coach, you usually have a big vision, a big goal. And that big vision and that big goal is often to do with something that's very close. Hey, Marie-André, right? It usually has something to do that's very close to your heart. And so when it's true to your heart, what happens is the frequency and that vibration is felt in your entire nervous system. So when you start to see your big vision and you see your big goals, what starts to happen is that feeling can be felt in the nervous system. And if we're not used to feeling that high frequency at the same time as feeling survival, it can feel overwhelming. Because when we see our vision, number 1, we see it. And then very often as human beings, number 2, what happens is we panic because we're like, oh my God, okay, we have this like vision. First, we're kind of excited. And then when we start to actually realize, oh, okay, so now I have to move towards that vision. Okay, so what do I have to do? Because our nervous system is feeling both the entirety of that vision and at the same time, and often in a split second, our kind of panic survival mode, the systems can become overwhelmed. So it's important to be able to discern that that's what happens when we are moving towards our vision. Number 1, we get excited, we see it, and there's no consequence. But then all of a sudden, as we realize, okay, that's what I want, and I want to move towards it, all of a sudden panic sets in. So you can imagine that for somebody who's an empath that feels everything, this can overwhelm the systems. So what's important to understand is a process that sees ourselves when we are in survival mode, because right before you're moving towards what you want, or when you go closer to, the minute you get to know what you want and you get closer to it, the minute also the resistance is going to come. Okay, let me know in the comments if that feels true for you. So it's like whenever you move closer to what you want, it's exciting, and at the same time, it's nerve-wracking. And actually, that is a skill that is to be mastered by those who really create and manifest their life. So we might misdiagnose sometimes when we feel fearful or when we feel doubtful or when we feel all of the feelings of what we feel when we start to implement the life of our dreams. We sometimes misdiagnose it as something is wrong with me and I can't achieve those goals or those dreams. But really what it is our opportunity to first see what is emerging and to be able to collaborate with all parts of us, because all parts of us in our dream life exist, meaning to say our dark shadows, our wounds, our all of the kind of incessant egoic structure, criticism that happens in our mind, like that, all of that exists even though we are moving towards our goal and our vision. And so as an empath, we want to be able to learn how to hone that energy. And the first stage of that, and if you were to work with me, it's like the first stage of that is to really go into, as you move towards where you want to go, to notice what is the chronic feeling and chronic emotion, especially if it's somewhere you want to go but you can't seem to get there. You want to start to look at what is it, the chronic emotion, and chronic feeling as you move forward, because that's a big kind of key and indicator to the first layer of what is stopping you. And on an intellectual level, we start to think, oh, okay, so if I feel doubt, then I have to start to feel more confident. But really, what we have to do is we start to see, like, what is that chronic emotion? And then one of the very first things I do when I work with my clients is to start to look at, where is that rooted? Where did that root in the physical body, in the mind, and in the energy? Because whenever we feel that chronic emotion, what happens is the physical, mental, and energetic body are coded in a system that is to protect us. So that system and that mechanism starts to engage, right? So if when you were younger, and this is true for everyone, when we were younger, there are moments in our life where we were just acting out of our pure, innocent self, and then we were told physically, mentally, and energetically that that was the wrong decision. So what happens then is that our physical body codes in that system and says, oh, okay, so if I act out of my purity, out of my heart, in the direction of where I see my life, then I am going to, I need to protect myself, because I'm starting to hear from the outside world that that's the wrong direction. And so we want to start to understand, first of all, what's the chronic emotion that starts to, that we start to experience, because that's your key. And then that's the key to allow you to understand, okay, so, and then go into that on a deeper level. Where did that come from, right? And how did that literally physically imprint in my body? Because that's the nervous system kind of going into that flight, or freeze, or fawn mode. And then as we begin to see where that's been imprinted, we can start to offer that part of us that didn't necessarily fully process that moment, the process of processing that unprocessed, unintegrated part of ourself. That part of ourself that was whole and then got fragmented in a moment in time where we were told, this is not right. This is not who you're supposed to be, right? And I mean, I give this example a lot, but, I have a client, for example, just to kind of give you a story about this, who her parents used to fight a lot. And in the moment, and so her mom would kick her dad out because he was, doing all kinds of, unbalanced things. And so what she would do is she would go out and she would comfort her dad, because that's what she was doing from her heart. And then her dad would be like, oh, just go back inside. You don't really love me. And here she's a child, right? And so she tried to go back inside and the door was locked. So right away in that moment, you can see the physical body and the nervous system, the mind and the energy pattern starting to form. And, okay, if I start to act out of my purity, which is just literally take care of the people I love, then I am not safe. I am not loved. I am not protected. I can't even get back into my own home. And the two people who are actually supposed to protect me are not there. And again, it's not a conscious thing on the parents' part, but you see how moments like these start to imprint our physical body, mind, and energy. So anytime when you're a healer or when you're a coach, you start to put yourself out there, which is true to your heart, that part of you will set in. And the part of you, and sometimes we misdiagnose this and think, okay, well, something must be wrong with me, or I'm not enough of this, I'm not enough of that. When really it's this moment in time where you're getting true to your heart again, and it's a moment where we can reintegrate that part that was not integrated and that part that got fragmented. And actually, I think as being a human being, that is actually the purpose of coming down here on earth, is to separate from our whole self, to find ourselves back again. So that's the beauty of being a healer. That's the beauty of being a coach. That's the beauty of going through towards your vision, towards your soul's calling, because it starts to put you on a path to reignite you and unite you with yourself as a whole. And yourself as a whole in this experience, in this lifetime, has those wounds, has that wounding of separation. And then we are purposely moving, towards it. And actually, that is the full soul's path. So, the other thing that's also interesting is we are also intuitive. So as empaths, we are intuitive people, which means that we tend to kind of feel what we need to do in our life. We have this knowing. It's not a logical perspective. And intuition, it kind of works like a dream. It works like you start to see things in a big vision kind of context. You start to see the big puzzle. You start to feel, the bigger picture. You start to see it all, and you start to you kind of know what you're supposed to be doing. It's either a knowing or an actual kind of internal vision. It's a frequency. It's a feeling. So that feeling, again, as I was talking at the beginning, it is a high frequency. And when we see it and then we start to move towards it as we set our goals, it is so, the way we see it, it's almost like if you were to look outside and you look at the vast sky, and then you ask yourself, okay, well, how do I recreate this vast sky? Like, how do I repaint this vast sky? And then it becomes overwhelming because it's like, oh, wow, the vision is so big and so daunting, and it still feels so true, but nobody knows but me. And that's the other thing. It's like this knowing that only you know. You are the only one that knows your soul's path. And that can feel like, whoa, okay, I have this mission here on earth, and nobody knows about it. And then I'm here to speak about it. So our intuitive brain is more of this creative big picture canvas. And then what gets overwhelming is like, okay, I don't know the first brushstroke. I don't know what to do, or like there's so many brushstrokes. I'm scared to just take the first one, because what if the first one doesn't actually lead to the whole beautiful picture that I'm trying to create here? So we don't necessarily think linearly, right? So if you know anybody who is very kind of like good at planning, it's because they have that linear brain. And I'm not saying empaths don't have that, but because we first start with our intuitive, creative brain, putting things in linear form and understanding what's the next obvious action. And if you were to work with me, we would strategize what is the most next profitable action in your life, in your business. Profitable energetically, so that we don't burn ourselves out, but we also don't underuse our power, and profitable in your business, so that you're not doing all of these million billion things to get to you're not going from A, B, C, D, E, F, G, instead of just going from A to B, if that makes sense. And very often in our business and in our life, it's the next most obvious action is very simple, but it feels very overwhelming. So, for example, if you're a healer and a coach and you're struggling in your business, very often it's about raising your prices, or very often it's about talking to your dreamiest clients, or it's going to speak somewhere. And all of those things, because they're so true to your heart, you can feel that frequency. And so the two vibrations of feeling that survival and feeling that high vibration, if we are not able to reintegrate what was fragmented in the past, and can be very challenging. Yeah. So what we want to start to realize as an empath is that we think or we feel or our brain works intuitively. The creative brain works first and then the answers come. And here's the thing about intuition. When we're getting it, it just kind of comes like when we're sort of more in a relaxed, open state. And sometimes it almost just sounds like a little dream. It's sort of like, oh, what about this idea? And what about that idea? And none of the ideas very often are ideas that we thought of before. It's not in the memory bank. Like that's what intuition is, right? It's remembering the future differently and remembering the past of what you've always known, the mission you've always known you are here to do. So sometimes you have these little inklings, these little whispers of what to do, but you get so used to hearing them and hearing them at the same time as your survival needs, where the survival needs will simply just like in a split second try to protect you and do what you need to do to survive versus, oh, that little idea of like doing this and talking about that and creating this. It like there's these little moments. So the antidote is to really learn how to start to trust those little moments of intuition and have a system to actually bring them out here on earth, which is very simple. Is when you have those, you write them down. I know that sounds so simple, but a lot of us don't do it because a lot of empaths don't necessarily do that because we're so used to having these little whispers that the soul offers us. And sometimes we may be expecting it like in this big, grandiose thing, but sometimes it's like, go outside and buy white paper so you can jot down your ideas. Like talk to so-and-so about this, read that book. Like it's just like these small ideas that are very original to you, and that we start practice, acting on those, even when we feel scared. Yeah. Let me know if that makes sense. So I would say the last point, the last reason why empaths get overwhelmed when we are goal setting is because we care deeply. And when we care deeply, because we feel a lot and because we so much want to align with that deeper truth that is aligned with our soul and aligned with our heart, that huge caring again switches into fear. So it's like so many of my clients, they're coaches, and they're like, oh my gosh, it's like what if I do this program and it doesn't work, right? And it's like I have a client, and she teaches autistic children, and she works with families, and she knows exactly where she wants to go and why she's here. And then immediately she started talking about like, wow, like I don't have enough certifications. I'm not experienced enough. I don't have enough clients, blah, blah. Like all of these, that egoic structure that starts to protect you and says, well, we don't know that. We don't know that life of you. Because here's the thing. When you're an empath and you see your big vision, it's a new version of yourself. And to the survival mind, when we are stepping into the unknown and into the new version of ourselves, it's not safe because we don't know that. There's no memory bank of us in that position, in that role, you see. And so that's why we get scared. And okay, let's just do what everyone else expects, or do what we've done all along to survive, right? So that mechanism starts to like kick in. But one thing that we can start to ask ourselves, because here's the thing, all of you in this community have been on a life path. You've been on a life path of experience, okay? And I know everyone here is very interested in their own evolution and healing and transformation. You've been on your own unique experience in terms of your professional training, and you've been on your own experience of the people you've worked with. So that unique triangle of three is what I call cannot be replaced. And so what you're going to ask yourself, especially if you want to work with a particular, what I call the dreamiest client and particular population, or offer something in the world, is 10 years from now, if that those people or that client or that dreamiest client does not work in the program that I offer. Let's say an autistic child that has having real trouble at school because the system doesn't necessarily support that uniqueness of a person. Where will they be in 10 years without the program? And continuing to put into a system that doesn't necessarily understand their deep needs. So I want you to ask yourself that question. If there's something you know you want to do in this world, and then if they do work with me, right, where would they be in 10 years? And if you, for example, have just find your own path, and you have been on your own healing path and your own journey, whatever that looks like, maybe it's yoga, maybe it's dance, maybe it's therapy, maybe it's exercise, maybe it's nature, maybe it's cooking. Like there's been a path for you. And if you think about these moments where if you did not have that in your life 10 years ago and where you would be today. So that's what you kind of want to put in perspective, so that all of a sudden you start to, all the noise, and let me know if this makes sense to you guys, but all the noise starts to shut down when you start to realize, why would I be given this path and this whisper, this calling, so I can just keep it into myself and think about it? Like, I don't think life is that, unmagical. If I were to say, we're all given something, however it plays out. You know your own truth. You know the path that you're here to walk. You do know it. And the interesting thing is, whenever I'm in coaching sessions, the egoic structure may say, no, I don't know. But when we start to relax the nervous system and we just start to speak freely of what we truly would want in our life, how we would feel, what would it look like, who would be there, what would be the number in my bank account, what would be my day like, what would it feel like, who would I be? When we start speaking to it just like that, it starts to come through. And that happens when we are in a state where the nervous system is relaxed enough. That means in the physical body, we're more grounded. And this is what we learn in our program. We first ground in the body. We learn how to process emotions. We learn how to clear the mind, and we learn how to master our energy. When we're in that state of receiving, all of a sudden the flow of what we want comes out. So we all know what we want. We just have to get ourselves in that state. And then know that process of when we start to get to know what we want, the immediate survival instinct will kick in. And sometimes they speak so close together. When we know what we want, we know what our soul wants, we know our mission. And then as we move action towards it, our physical body and our nervous system has to actually take action. Boom. It's like right. And then our mind, it's like they speak so closely together, that part of us that's trying to protect us and actually kind of prevents us from going forward. Okay. And so if you were to work with me, I teach you is how do we work with those and start to discern what is the voice of your soul, is what we can call it, and what is the voice of survival. Because here's the thing, especially if you've been doing a lot of spiritual work, in whatever that means for you, okay? So I don't have a category of what spiritual work means. I think that spiritual paths are the ones where you're just living out your dream life. And you're creating your life from your heart, from your soul. That's what it is for me. That's what the spiritual path is for me, a conscious one. We're all on a spiritual path, actually. Everybody, all 9 billion of us are on a spiritual path. But if we're consciously, like in this lifetime, practicing the evolution of our own self, humanly and spiritually, or spirit-wise, that's what it is for me. So we want to start to discern between those two voices, because here's the thing: when you are starting to move towards what you want, our ego, the first thing it will do is that, like, that panic mode. But as you start to move closer and closer to what you want, it becomes more subtle, and the egoic voice becomes more subtle, and it sounds very reasonable. And here's the nuance, because when something sounds very reasonable, it sounds very correct, and it sounds very like smart and very right. But sometimes that very reasonable voice is still a voice of protection, if that makes sense. It's still that voice. It's sort of like, just if you're thinking basic things, like, oh yeah, I think I should go to this dance class, or I think I should try something new. I think I should go out with that person that I don't really know, but I feel a connection with. I think, like, there's just this little, and then your reasonable voice will be like, but it's snowing outside. Oh, it's icy outside. Oh, I don't think I should go. Like, so the two sound so, they're in the same almost timeline, or a time, like, linear kind of sentence, that it feels like it's all one aspect of ourself speaking. But if you look closer, what's really happening is that you have the hit and the intuition, and of course we have free will, so we always have choice. But it's important to unconsciously know if you're kind of not necessarily listening to the intuition, where you're like, okay, not now, my nervous system is not necessarily ready. And even that is kind of like an intellectual ego saying you're not ready. And then discerning between that reasonable voice, that is just kind of keeping you more in the known, in the comfort zone, right? Oh, if I stayed home in my pajamas. And so I'm not saying we can't say no to these inklings, but what we do want to start to observe is, are we saying yes or no? Are we saying no to what we really want and yes to what we don't want? Or vice versa? Are we really saying yes to what we really want and no to, like, a sacred no, so that we can say yes to what we really want? There's a mouthful. But sometimes we say yes when we really mean no. And sometimes we say no when we really mean yes. And sometimes it's important to know when we have a sacred no, so that it leaves room for what we need. So meaning to say, survival needs kick in, and this is like, let's say in your day-to-day, and you start, like, there's something important that you prioritize for your soul, the mission here you have on earth, but you clean your bathroom, you scroll on Instagram, you start emailing other people, you start, like, taking care of all of these things to do versus what you want. Because the list of things to do, so here's the difference, okay? So goal setting is not a to-do list. Goal setting is based on a vision. And am I walking on the path towards that vision? Is this step, even if it's one tiny step, towards that vision, and based on what I want? So don't confuse doing things and thinking that it's moving towards your vision. That makes sense. So sometimes we confuse, like, the busyness and the doing, or like we overcomplicate. I have a client where she just has to speak to a few families to get a few the people she wants to work with, but she wants to work. She was telling me, like, okay, I'm going to work on my website, and then I'm going to work on my CV, and then I'm going to, like, research this, and I'm like, whew. That's like a great to-do list, but move towards what you want. You want to work with families, and with families who have an autistic child. You have a network. Speak to those people. You see, so it's like it's almost too simple, because the linear mind and the left brain mind here's another way that we tend to protect ourselves. It loves to solve problems. And it's important to know that, because when we start to be in this problem solving like reality, it makes us feel like we're doing something. And I'm not saying we can't use that, but if we're doing it and we're trying to go over here when we really have to go over here, it's like, let me do that to get to that, instead of let me just get to that. Does that make sense? So it's like with my client, it's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna do my website, and then I'm gonna take a photo shoot, and then maybe I'm gonna rent this studio, and then like there's like, oh, then I'm gonna do this and all this like stuff, and it's like, okay, you don't have to do all of that to work with the clients in your network. So go directly to where you want to go, right? And like that's the biggest thing that with our clients that we work with is that reintegrating that part of us that, basically, here are the 6 kind of wounds that all of us empaths have to deal with. And let me know which one resonates with you. I don't belong. Oh, that's not for me. I'm not a person that makes money. I don't do business. I don't know technology, or I don't have certifications. I'm not like that guru. I'm not perfect. Oh, okay. I have to have the credentials. I have to have my website has to look good. My Instagram page has to look good. Blah 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 blah. I'm not significant. Who wants to hear what I have to say? Like, it's not worthy of respect. I'm not worthy, right? It's like, oh, okay. I don't think I'm valuable enough to charge what I want to charge, or what I need to charge, right, to run a business. I am not capable. Oh, I don't have enough experience. I don't have enough certifications. Maybe I need to take another 3-year certification to get to this or that, right? And I think I said them all. I don't belong. I'm not worthy. I'm not enough. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough something. I'm not enough. I'm not capable. I'm not significant. I'm not perfect. So all of those unconscious wounds are something that humans in general need to kind of reintegrate. When we got that message, right? When we got that message when we were younger, to recollaborate with this kind of human condition that we experience here on Earth. And to be human, and to, some spiritual masters say, like, one of the greatest gifts here as being human is that we feel deeply. So we're all empathic. And, but I know some of us, those empathic feelings are more present, and we're more aware of them. So thus we feel more. So everyone can be empathic, but it's like not everyone necessarily fine-tunes that skill of feeling the body, feeling energy, or hearing our intuition, or working with our creative brain. So those 6 kind of wounds are the ones that here on Earth that we come and we kind of play with and reintegrate. And then that emotion, because we're able to feel everything, creates this deep empathy. And so there is a gift in the soul moving through that experience. The experience of seeing the facet of what it feels like to feel so deeply that it hurts, and to feel so deeply that it's so overwhelmingly blissful. Because not all experiences, let's say in let's say if you want to get to like different dimensions, are felt in the way that humans feel. So as us empaths, as we feel what we feel, and we have the overwhelm, we can really start to know that we're going down a process that starts to allow us to reignite and unify with ourselves again. And that's the first stage. Is to collaborate with the fragmented parts of ourselves and learn how to practice being in that high vibration, and actually to be alive. The truth of the matter is that it is painful and it is beautiful at the same time. And as a human being, I think that's the soul. The soul is experiencing that duality. What is it like to be so much in pain, to be alive and be so much in pain, and yet feel and see everything so beautifully? So it's like that contrast allows one to exist and one to be felt. If we were only in bliss, we don't necessarily have the contrast of knowing what bliss actually is. So here on earth, it's like we experience these depths of pain so that we can have this contrast. And from a soul's perspective, it's just part of our of the soul's evolution. So we come down here on Earth School to experience that, and then that awareness and that consciousness gets re-emerged back into the whole. So those are the three reasons why empaths, and specifically in this community, empathic entrepreneurs, those who want to create their own life and manifest their dream vision, that's the reason why we get overwhelmed. And now we can take this overwhelm and understand, ooh, okay, I'm stepping into the tunnel of transformation. As I step into this overwhelm, it's like it allows me and it gives me the opportunity to reintegrate the fragmented parts of myself. So it's an opportunity. It's not easy, it's not simple, this path of healing, this journey, right? This journey of discovering the pains of life. But it is, when we do continue to listen to our soul's calling, what starts to happen is there is a sense of peace that occurs, and there's a sense of knowing, and there's a sense of fulfillment. Because here's the thing, your soul is always going to beckon you. And I think for empaths, because we feel so much, if we don't listen, it's almost harder not to listen to what the soul is saying than to go forth and move through the pain, if that makes sense. It's like it started like, when it's like taking a balloon and like kind of like it's trying to float up to the surface, and you keep on pushing it down because you're like, no, I don't want to hear you, I don't want to feel you, I don't want to like to follow you, like to you to float up and come for air. So it takes us more energy, right? So as we move towards where we want to go, because we feel so much, it can feel overwhelming. But the good news is, if we start to learn that process, learn what happens, learn how how we function and how we see like the big, huge painting and the big canvas, and we're like, wow, we can be in actual awe and beauty of it. We can be overwhelmed by like how beautiful it is. I get to paint this picture in the way I want, because we have free will. There's a picture painted for us as a soul, but it doesn't mean we have to follow the exact outline, right? But we can start to put our own brushstrokes on the canvas, and every time we do that, there's something that lights up in us. So that's point number one. We feel everything. Point number two, because we are intuitive, we don't think linearly, right? And so we work from the creative brain. And if we understand ourselves as understanding, we get these little intuitive hits, and we work from the creative brain, and then the linear brain can implement. So when we get the creative hit, that's when we want to implement the problem solving. It's like, oh, okay, the whisper was this, go do that. Oh, and it's usually the whispers are actually usually ideas, and then the very first thing that we do is just put it down on paper. Okay, so to kind of avoid that overwhelm, whenever you get these little intuitive hits, just write them down, and then ask yourself, well, what can I do today to just like take a little step towards that? Not what do I have to do? What are all the things I need to do to get to this point? No. What is just the next most obvious action? And if you're an entrepreneur, what is the next most profitable action, energetically and financially? You don't have to do like a million, billion, one things to get to your client or raise your prices or change the title of your offer. Like, you know, and again, it's not as, it's simple, but, you know, as empaths, what I teach you guys is we work through it somatically with the body. We work through it in the mind. We work with it emotionally, work with it energetically. And lastly, because as an empath, we care so deeply. And our egoic structure and our survival mode and our soul kind of battle it out. And we don't necessarily discern between the two voices. So we want to learn how to discern between the two voices and understand, again, where am I going to be, or where are the people I'm working with going to be in 10 years from now if they don't, work in this way where I could truly understand them. Because here's the thing, I teach you guys how to work with your dreamiest clients. So I'm teaching you not just to work with anybody, but the ones that you are called to work with. Okay, so that's what makes that question relevant. So if they're not those who are meant to work with you, if they don't work with you, what happens to them 10 years from now? And if they do work with you, what happens to them 10 years from now? And then we can allow that to guide us, even through the nervousness, the fear, the doubt, the I don't belong, I'm not significant, I'm not perfect, I'm not worthy, I'm not enough, I'm not capable. So this is our opportunity. All of this overwhelm is our opportunity to reintegrate back into who we truly are. That's what this path is offering us. It's not to notice what we are not, what's not with us, or what needs to be fixed or broken. Because I think sometimes on the healing path we make that mistake. It's to, this is the pathway to come back to who I am at my core. And at your core, we are here and we're mortal beings. And we're here to experience, period. And the soul has a little bit of a mission here on earth. And so if we know that, if our time is limited here on earth, sometimes that can put us into perspective. But again, if you need the deeper healing where, all of this sounds great, Jamie, that's great, but, I feel stuck when I'm creating my life, my dreams, then the very first thing I would do with you on a free breakthrough yoga coaching call is, one, figure out where is that imprinted in your body, in your mind, and your energy, so that we can see the pattern and then start to re-pattern and recode that pattern. And so once we start recoding that pattern, then we can unlock the first key that's holding our systems back from moving forward. So if you're interested in creating a life that you love, you're interested in continuing to listen to your soul's path on a practical way where it's not just all up in your head and this great idea, but actually knowing, well, what would be my next most obvious action? What would be, how can I continue to move in my goals without getting overwhelmed? And what is the most next profitable action? What's the most obvious action in my business? And then as we move towards it, the natural thing that's going to happen is that we're going to be overwhelmed with emotion, because that's the unfragmented, unintegrated part of us that continues to emerge. And I'm going to be there side by side as we work together, and every time you get closer to what you want, you bet that all of the SHIT is going to hit the fan, because that's what happens, right? It's the opportunity, it's the emerging of that, fragmented part of us that can start to become reintegrated. So we learn how to process that emotion. We learn how to master our energy. We learn how to clear the mind. We learn how to do it somatically in the body, because that is probably one of the biggest importance of entrepreneurs, is to understand that they must work through their business on a somatic level. It cannot just be linear through the mind. We must process it, everything through the body, and get clear in the mind so that we can hear our own downloads and master how we utilize our energy, because empaths have this tendency to kind of merge with everything, and we don't necessarily understand what our frame is and what another frame is, right? So that's it. So if you're interested, just DM me, let me know, Jamie, I'm ready for a breakthrough yoga coaching call. And on that call, like I said, we're going to look at where you're stuck in your body, in your mind, and in your energy, so that can be the first domino effect to allow you to move towards where you want to go, and step on that path. Because it's not necessarily, I know this is cliche, but it's not necessarily the destination, the big canvas. It's your soul always wants to know, am I just walking on the path? Because some of us are walking literally on the completely wrong path, and that's also part of the soul's journey. But when we are searching and when we are seeking, if we continue to stick on that thread, that's what we need to know. And then we can continue to allow that frequency and that direction to guide us. And then that's when we know, we feel that we're aligned in our heart, we're aligned in our mind, we're aligned in our body. So DM me, let me know if that's something you're interested in. It's some deep work, so it's for people in this community who have already been doing that work and who are in that readiness. And that's it. I hope this was helpful. I'm going to be doing a 3-day somatic pathway, 3 days to setting and achieving your goals. And so we're going to go deeper into this topic and actually start to flesh out and start to kind of start the pathway of getting on the path and moving towards it in a way where it starts to collapse time for you. Because I think sometimes we know where we want to go, but it's like we spend a lot of time in the sort of realm of imagination. And this 3-day somatic training is going to help you just get the momentum and the direction going. So look out for that. I'll see you next week, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. DM me if you're interested in a breakthrough yoga coaching call. And otherwise, I hope this was helpful. I want to hear your biggest takeaways. I can't see the comments live, so I'm going to come back and I promise to answer all of your questions. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.